What I thought we'd start off with is our writing, since, grades are due next week, and we all need to be grading them. So I really wanted to talk about how we're going, the ES opportunity here, because I looked through my rough drafts last night, and they're doing pretty well retelling the story, but is the setting the most important thing that we're looking for here? Because that's one thing we wanted them to change. So, I don't know, what do you guys think?
I mean, I think making sure that they're including the descriptive details about the setting, I think is the most important part, is that their descriptive details match the setting and that they are coming in with their adjectives and the use of language that they're using.
Okay, but so I have one girl that I read her rough draft, and I thought she did a really good job of incorporating the setting. Like, she was in the rainforest, and butterflies were her characters, and they lived in a flower house, and one of the things was the raincoats that they tried on, and the this and the that. I mean, the three elements, or the three things, went with her setting. So
I think
I'm wondering,
that's-
is that
yeah.
an yes? Because, she really put throughout the story.
And she continued
incorporated
it the whole
setting.
time. She didn't start and then kind of fade away from.
Right. But to others, they just introduced the setting.
Yeah.
and
Their
that was
story
it.
didn't really have anything
Right.
to do with this.
So that's why hers kind of stood out to me as an exceptional.
So if they continue it throughout the story that they're showing, that they keep referring back to.
The fact that they're in
the
desert,
rainforest,
rainforest.
yeah.
So that would be probably under the descriptive details part of the narrative piece, that would be where the ES would come in. So if you're able to really tell throughout their story what their biome is, then that would be the ES opportunity for the descriptive details.
Okay. Now, so what are we looking for a P, in that area, or,
I think as long as they introduced it in the beginning, as long as it was part of their
the way that they
lead.
did with
and maybe their characters are
Yeah.
animals or
From-
whatever from that setting. Okay, so that would be proficient. Another thing I had a question about in looking through mine was that one student, how fairy tales, folk tales have threes, and most of our stories, repeats 3 times. He only did 2 times, but did a nice job of retelling the story with 2 times. Is that still proficient? He retold the story, but only, the bears, the Goldilocks or whatever in the story, only did 2 things instead of 3.
Yeah, because in the tradition, it's they eat, they sit, they sleep. 1, 2, 3.
Right.
I kind of think you have to
You-
have 3.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
because I know I made a point to say things, because this is a folk tale, a fairy tale.
Right.
It happens in 3s.
Yeah.
Which story so you both did Goldilocks?
That's what I did.
Little
What
Red
did you
Hen.
do? Okay, Little Red Hen, and I did the mitten.
And we talked about the elements of 3, how there has to be 3 friends. And a lot of them said,
Right.
well, I want to have 4 friends. And I said, well, think about all the stories that we've read. How many friends have there been? And there's only been 3 friends, so.
And for mine, I had the last animal that came had to be their smallest animal. So that's the same type of thing. So it has to, I think, maintain the structure of the story.
So even though, let's say, even though it's 3s, but they had 3 characters. There's an element of 3 in the story, even though he only did 2 times. Because
I see what you're saying.
I thought he did a good job, but then he
He
didn't
does
go.
introduce an element of 3. It's
So,
just not throughout the whole
But
thing.
then if we're looking at this, then the retelling of the folktale would probably be an I, but the including other elements of a folktale
Right.
could be
Because
the
he had a
P.
lead, he had an ending, he had the characters.
So, a
Magic
student
of-
could have an I on the retelling part, an ES for their descriptive details, and then a P for the other part, and they'd still average out to probably be a P
So
overall.
we're all going to grade all of these things for the folktale. You know how sometimes we pick out
I will
few
probably,
things.
what I'll probably end up recording, I'm gonna give them all a grade for all of them, but what I think the most important ones are the retelling of the folktale and fairy tale, the inclusion of the descriptive details, and probably a blend of the lead and other elements.
because those are both the same thing, because the lead is an element of folktales.
Right.
Okay.
So if they, let's say they wrote a really amazing lead and I would give them an ES, then I'd probably put in the grade book an ES for that.
All right.
So I'd probably give them the benefit of the doubt for
Okay.
those.
That just made me think of Aiden because his original story, I had to write it for him, then he wrote it. So his original story, it was about Chase the rattlesnake and the 3 foxes. So then we did it, we finished it, and he lost his folder. So we had to do it again. And this time he wanted Snoopy as his main character, which I'm like, yay, that's great, but it has nothing to do with, but now he's like working on Snoopy as his main character and the foxes. And I'm like, but, so what do I do with, and he's kind of.
I would say, it's a pretty solid I.
Yeah.
I would guess. Just because he wasn't able to really do it independently.
Right.
He's able to do certain things with teacher support. And especially I would say the I would probably be in the narrative piece and probably the process, production, and research. I might say, did I write a rough draft of my story? No. He didn't. So, if we're talking about a student that doesn't have an IEP, does he have an IEP? So I think right now you're going to have to start demonstrating the fact that he is unable to meet. Our expectations right now are that students are able to do this independently.
Right.
And if you're basically having to write it for him and then he's copying it, then that's an N.
Okay.
He can still earn I's for his ideas up here.
Right.
But the actual written piece, this part here, he's going to have to start earning some N's in it because our expectations are now that he's doing it independently.
But students with IEPs would be getting an
right.
I because they have those accommodations.
Right.
Because I actually talked with Linda about Jarvis yesterday and asked her recommendation for writing, with writing grades because he gets a lot of help. He's got some ideas, but he gets a lot of help. But that's part of his
accommodations.
IEP. Yeah.
Right.
He wrote about KFC.
What biome was he?
I don't know. It doesn't really even say which biome, but he had the 3 little hen and the big girl. And the big girl went to the house and she ate KFC. Maybe that's why she's a big girl.
Consistency.
It probably took Linda 4 weeks to get that out of him.
Oh, it's a long.
What about
Oh my
example
God.
1? Because there's no IEP, but Courtney and I gave
I still
heavy
think
support.
right now it's still an I. I
Yeah.
think because they are also under the first, they're still NEPs for
Right.
quarter 1, quarter 2 anyway.
Okay.
So what I tend to do for them is I would give them a grade based off of the standard. And then you can always override it anyway, in the grade book. And I would say right now, that other one that we saw, it's probably going to be I's and P's.
Right. And Lily did not change much of the story. She just changed the animals.
Well,
But they
I-
were still making bread.
Yeah, I have my one guy that won't get grades or doesn't have to get grades. He is basically, he's changed the characters, but he wants to look at the book. He basically
That's
wants
what Lily
to
was doing.
look at the book and it's like, you can do it, you can retell the story.
Yeah.
Because
Because it was we're still working on the elements of a story anyway.
Right.
So.
But you could give her a grade, or any of them a grade, like the process, production, and research. If they're doing all that at a proficient level, you could give them a grade for just that. You don't have to necessarily give them NEP for that,
Right.
Yeah, my level 1's, she's going to get grades on writing this time. I didn't grade her the last one, but she will this time because she did a lot pretty independently.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
She's come a long way. She really has.
Now, going along with use of language.
Well, before we, let's see, are there any ES opportunities in the process, production, and research area that we see?
Maybe the illustrations.
Definitely illustrations. I think
Because,
is great.
she actually did the entire house and you can, like, hers was the rainforest, so you can see, like, the vines that would be swinging in, and, like, so even just, like, how she, like, had it set up, like, you can really see. So, I mean,
And if the illustrations go along with the
And-
text
right,
that's
and it
on the
matches,
page, that,
yeah.
that makes it, you know, sometimes they just draw a picture that goes along with their
Like-
story.
Cute. I even think though there's also opportunities for like editing
Yes.
and revising. I think sometimes the kids, as they're going to write their final copy, they either realize something doesn't make sense, and they really are showing a strong sense of like changing their story.
Staff, don't forget it's Giuseppe's Day if you want to come down and order. Thank you.
No, I totally agree, because a lot of times they just go back, even if they're just looking for spelling, but like when they go back and they actually change
That's what I'm really
the story
looking
and
for.
add
for
in their
ES.
adjectives and all on their own.
Yep.
Without
Yeah, we didn't
Coming to
help
us.
them this time.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think if they're able to really edit and change their writing, then that is also. And I will, just like before, I think I'll probably kind of combine both the
Editing
first
and
two, the
revising.
planning and writing a rough draft, and then the next two revising and editing, and then the illustrations would stand on its own. So those would be like the three
Three
grades from there.
Now, spelling, that, checking your spelling, when they go to editing, they're looking for spelling mistakes, but were they able to go back and fix them? Is that what we're looking for there? Okay.
Yeah, and I think too, if they are going through their writing and they are able to identify the words that they, have
If they've circled
misspelled,
misspelled words.
and that they're
Yeah.
able then to also fix them at that.
especially the words that are in our quick words. Those
Or
words.
on the word wall.
Or the word wall, yeah. But those should be the ones that they. I mean,
Yeah.
I would love for them to, because we did talk about using the dictionary, but
And also, I think about spelling, did they spell a lot of their words correctly to begin with? Because, that's part of use of language, are they able to spell? Not- Because the editing part would be, do I
Did you go
know
back
that
and-
I spelled it wrong? But the use of language part is, how well did they spell?
Are they applying like the spelling rules that we've talked about? And I think too, with looking at the use of language, it's the adjectives and the adverbs are an ES opportunity, and again, will be ones that are mixed together. And I really think that creative language piece is like a huge opportunity for them to have an ES. I think some of the ones that I'm seeing that are really standing out are they're adding in those adjectives and adverbs, but they're also adding like unique words that are specific either to their biome
Yeah.
or like they're just
the
kind of
lizard
creative.
loves to bask in the sun.
Right, things like that. That we're just kind of seeing that it's almost like with the 6 traits, it's like their voice,
Yeah, that's
right?
what I
For
was
those
thinking.
kids that really you can hear the story or see the story.
That's what I was thinking. And I mean, if they just like you said, voice, or if they, just like bask in the sun or use different kind of verbs that they wouldn't normally use.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I think, with that, or looking at each part will have 3 grades, and with each of them, we'll have at least 2 opportunities for an ES. So, with that, they could earn ESs in each category.
well, that's good. Because,
Well, I think this is the first one, the first piece of writing that we've done that's been all on their own. The first couple were
And I
pretty
can
heavily
tell.
scripted.
yeah, I really, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, some kids are really able to apply what they've learned, and I think that's really what the ES is kind of about, right? Is that they're taking it and applying it to a brand new situation. So this was, we helped them a lot with the other ones. They had a strong understanding of their biome, and then it's how well they were able to apply that knowledge to a brand new piece of writing.
All right, so, pretty good with writing?
Yeah.